Friends vs. Friends is a deck-building first-person shooter where you can play against your actual friends or just connect to an online match, so it's friends versus strangers. The card and deck mechanics are the most unique part of this game, so I'll explain how those work before getting into my review. When you first buy the game, you receive a default deck of 25 cards. As you level up and unlock more cards, you can start shaping your deck by adding and removing cards of your choice. Once you're ready to start a game, you can play 1v1, 2v2, 3v3, or free-for-all with friends or random players from online. Each game consists of several rounds, and the first player or team to win 3 rounds is victorious. You win a round by simply killing all the players on the enemy team. So where do the cards come into this? Well, at the start of each round you get a few cards. You can play them in the middle of the round, or you can save them for future rounds. The cards have lots of different effects. Some increase a stat like speed or health, or decrease opponent's stats. Some are a one-time effect like a grenade or a flashbang. Some give you a special weapon for that round, and some are just really wacky. Now that we've established how the game works, let's go into my thoughts on it. I know I don't usually make videos that are just reviews for games, but I've been having a lot of fun with this one recently and I wanted to talk about it. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you like this video. I mean, come on guys, we can do better than this. First of all, let's talk about the major pros and cons of the deck building system. Pros first. Pro number 1, it's unique. Not that combining cards with action has never been done before, but it definitely isn't something you see often. I'll always welcome a first-person shooter that's polished and fun to play while also offering something interesting mechanics-wise, especially because I'm actually really bad at basic first-person shooters, so any mechanic that's not moving, aiming, and shooting is a plus in my book. Pro number 2, the deck building system adds variety between rounds. In most shooters, it can get boring to just play the same maps with the same guns over and over again, so it's nice that every round usually has a few differences, small or large, that shake it up a little. One round the floor is lava, one round someone has the infamous shotgun, one round someone throws a bunch of bombs, etc. Each round stands out in a way that you don't see in most shooters. Pro number 3, building your deck is fun. It adds a nice sense of progress as you unlock new cards and flesh out your deck. If you're playing with the same friends over and over, you kind of adapt to each other's decks as you level up. It gives you a real drive to keep playing, at least until you've unlocked all the cards, which is something I'll talk about later. Pro number 4, the deck building system adds an interesting balance between using your cards and saving them. Since cards carry over between rounds if you don't use them, you'll often have to decide on the fly whether it's better to use that gun or that health up now, or wait for a time when it would just barely tip the scales in your favor. I built a deck where I would save up different bomb-related cards for a while, then unleash a barrage of super powered up bombs and wipe the whole lobby. Con number 1, not enough cards. For a game that's all about collecting cards, this game doesn't really have a lot of them. After playing for a while, you're going to see the same things happening over and over, the same guns, the same few powerful or interesting combos. It makes it hard to build your deck around a specific theme or idea, which I feel like is an important element for any deck building game to have. If you want to make a deck based around fire, for example, you'll be out of luck because there are only 2 or 3 fire cards in the whole game. It also affects your drive to keep playing because once you've unlocked all the cards, there's not much more to do in terms of unlocking new content. I don't think there needs to be a million billion cards so that you never see the same thing twice and you can keep unlocking new ones forever, but a little variety in these things goes a long way. Luckily, this problem is solvable if the developers remain diligent and keep updating the game with more cards. Only time will tell. Con number 2, unbalanced cards. I know how hard it is to balance such a large amount of mechanics, and I think they've done a pretty good job, but sometimes it's just not enough. The main example for me would be the tiny card, which makes the player so small that it's essentially be invincible for like 20 seconds, which is pretty broken. Even worse than the fact that it's overpowered though, is that it's just not fun to fight. Some would also say that the shotgun and the machine gun are too strong, or that the Uzi is too weak, or that some of the cards have no counter, etc. The developers have been making frequent balance changes, so I'm sure that they can eventually get some of these things smoothed out if they keep at it. Regardless, it's still an annoyance for now. Con number 3, it's too hard to get a specific card. If you really want a particular card in your deck that you don't have, you have no reliable way to obtain it other than just opening a bunch of packs until you get lucky. I'll admit that this is a much smaller problem than the other two due to the relatively low number of cards, and it might even be an advantage for some as it keeps you playing for longer. A solution to this could be to give the player more variety in the packs they can buy, because at the moment there are only 4 and one of them is only for shiny cards anyway. You can buy a collector's pack, which is guaranteed to give you a card that you don't already have, but it could be any card, and also it's really expensive and only gives 1, so the value is incredibly low. So the deck building system is overall very good, but it's not without its weaknesses. Luckily, these cons lie more in the execution of the system than the core idea, so I can see most of these being fixed with patches or future updates. For now though, they definitely detract from the game somewhat. So other than the deck building system, what else is there to like or dislike about this game? Well, the graphics are polished and smooth with a visually distinctive art style that sets Friends vs. Friends apart from most ultra-realistic shooters that require a NASA PC to run properly. There are only like 3 songs in the soundtrack, but they're all bangers. You can choose between different characters to play as who give different abilities. You only start with a few, but unlock more by leveling up. The characters are well balanced in the sense that none of them them are overpowered, but some are definitely pretty useless. The daily quests sometimes make you use characters and cards that you wouldn't use normally, which adds some variety in your playstyle. Friends vs. Friends is also very anti-pay to win. You pay once and get access to all the content except for a few cosmetics, which are locked behind DLC. Granted, paying for cosmetics isn't technically pay to win, but it still seems a little strange for a game with this sentiment. There's literally graffiti that says, "F pay to win." Speaking of graffiti, I like that you can walk around the little plaza in between rounds to access the different menus. You can still just use the buttons if you want, but some people will enjoy the immersion of actually going over into a little coffee shop, walking over to your stack of cards, and then customizing it instead of just clicking the cards button. It reminds me of Splatoon lobbies, where you can walk into shops, do a bit of parkour, and see other characters just hanging around. There's also a cool room with lots of fan art, as well as cards that I assume are fan-made but that I wish were actually in the game. A 3v3 mode was added recently, which is fun, but it can also feel a little too chaotic at times, due to the sheer amount of cards being constantly used. Also, most of the maps are too small for 6 players. Speaking of maps, most of the maps in Friends vs. Friends are quite good, with my favorites being Museum and Rooftop because they're easy to understand but complex enough to provide some interesting gameplay. The worst map is definitely Theater, which is just too cramped with too many hallways, walls, and moving parts. Here's a quick tier list of the quality of all the maps in my opinion. Also, I'm not saying there aren't enough maps, but I definitely wouldn't complain if there were more. Overall, I think Friends vs. Friends is definitely worth buying, especially if you have a few friends to play it with. Hopefully the problems I mentioned in this video can be smoothed out in future updates and Friends vs. Friends will become something really special. It does have its flaws for now, but nobody's perfect, and even with those problems, it still delivers quite a few hours of fun. Thanks for watching, like and subscribe, goodbye.